Hey, welcome back to another episode of a side-by-side film comparison. A couple weeks back, I made an ode to tungsten film video looking at 5 different tungsten films at night. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing 2 of those films that I shared in that video. A couple months back, I went out and shot an entire roll of Cinestill 800T as well as Fujichrome T64 Type 2 film. I shot these side-by-side on my 2 Nikon N80s. So let's dive into a Cinestill 800T versus Fujichrome 64T Type 2 side-by-side film comparison. At the beginning of the night, I made my way down 7th Street in downtown St. Paul looking for cool lights to take pictures of. First, I stopped at this Best Pawn Shop. I loved how the old neon signs looked. Looking at Cinestill on the left, you see that it leans green in the shadows and midtones, versus the Fuji 64T leads with a bluish purple look. I love how the colors complement each other in the Fuji 64T. Here's another angle of the Best Pawn looking down on 7th Street. One thing you notice is that the neon sign looks cleaner without all the halation on the Fuji 64T. I still think both look great side by side, but I do lean towards the 64T. As I continued down 7th Street, I found this little thrift shop across the street from the Best Pawn. The lights in the 64T came across more as white in this shot. I like how the blue hour sky looks in both of these. Although the emotions that you get from each of them feels very different, the Cinestill 800T feels spooky to me versus the Fuji 64T has this very cool look. I continued my drive down 7th Street and came across the drive-in liquor store. I love how the red sign and red arrow are small but mighty notes in the scene. I feel like the older liquor stores always have such great lighting for night photos. With the neon signs and arrows, something just draws you in. Further down on 7th Street, I came across Mancini's Char House. It smelled heavy of barbecue. One thing you'll notice in some of the Cinestill 800T shots, they came out a little soft. Now I'm not sure if this was an issue with the lens or the scans, but something to be aware of. As you can see, the Fuji 64T came out much sharper. As you've probably seen, the Cinestill 800T is more true to life than the 64T, but something about the unnatural look of the Fuji is exciting to me. Here's a close-up of the Mancini sign. I love how the brick on each of these look. And even the Mancini's parking sign is a lovely red neon. I feel a very strong need to document these types of places because I don't know how much longer they'll be around. I was so excited to come across this car. I was outside the Grand 7 on 7th Street and ran across this beauty. And as I was getting set up for the shot, the owner came out and I got to talk to him for a little bit. I like how the 64T made the scene cooler, but to be honest, this is one of the few shots from the night where I actually preferred the Cinestill 800T. The warmer tones of the Cinestill make this feel like it was taken in the 1970s to me. Overall, this was my favorite set of the night. Something about how the lights reflected off the front grille and along the windshield is very pleasing to me. I think it also looked great against the red neon lines of Grand 7. Here you can see the differences again in a tungsten film with remgent removed with halations versus Fuji 64T's cleaner look with the neon signs. So I wanted to point something out in this shot. I'm assuming that the reflection of the downtowner sign on the left of the sign is a result of the removed remjet, either that or from a UV filter that was left on. My understanding of remjet is to help reduce reflections off the film during exposure, and as you can see here, there's no ghost reflections in the 64T shot. Again, the Cinestill is more natural to the scene, but I liked how these two contrast and turned out so different from one another. One of my favorite things about film photography is how sometimes a simple subject can have different looks. A different film stock can completely change the look and feel of a scene. I liked how different these parking garages turned out, with little different in the scene other than the light within the garage and the street lights. And here's another angle looking directly at the parking garage. As I continued driving around St. Paul, I came across a couple of eerie looking apartments. I wanted to see how each of these films dealt with this specific lighting, and I loved how the 64T made the curtains a cold blue. Next, I went to Grand Avenue in St. Paul, and first I stopped by this hardware store. I loved how the purplish tint of the 64T worked with the red lines. Here again, you can see how the Cinestill came out a little bit soft. And the 64T turned out so sharp and strong in this scene. I also wanted to note how the colors on the underside of the ceiling looked between these two films. Even something as simple as a drive-in parking sign can add so much. But I like the red sign in this version better. It feels like the halation from the Cinestill version is too distracting. But in this shot, I like the halation and I think it looks good. Versus here, I think the sign isn't as strong in the 64T. So overall, I do like the Cinestill version of this shot better. After that, I made my way to Tavern on Grand to get some photos of the blinking lights. I really liked how the wood and lettering turned out on the 64T for the Tavern on Grand sign. I think both images look great here, and I don't have a preference on either one. Next, I got this shot of George's shoe and leather shop on Grand Avenue. I liked how you could see into the shoe and leather shop more on this shot. It was interesting how the light directed your eyes in each of these shots. To me, the Cinestill seemed to pull your eyes to the neon sign and the George sign, whereas the 64T, I liked how the red light reflected on the brick and the door on the left pulled you in more. And for this last shot of the night, I captured Tom's tailors. As you can see, I had exposed more towards the inside of the shop. And overall, I liked how there were so many traditional trade mom and pop shops in St. Paul. So thanks again for watching, and I was curious, which film of the two did you prefer overall? Hey, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this film side-by-side comparison. I get really excited to shoot all these different films. I'm so curious how they look when I go out shooting. A lot of times I can't just shoot one. I want to see what they look like side by side. If you really like this video, go ahead and check out, I have a playlist of other side-by-side film comparisons to check out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.